Hi, I'm Nina, and today we'll be discussing journaling for mental health. Having a kid that's suffering with addiction, alcoholism, mental health is a lifetime of worrying and feeling sorry for ourselves, blaming ourselves, thinking we should have, could have, would have done things differently while raising our addict. But we didn't have a crystal ball. And let's face it, if someone told us way back when that we were parenting our kids and that we'd be coping with this years later, no way. None of us would believe that. At the beginning of my journaling, I was constantly just using pages all over the house, just putting them in drawers and not really keeping it together and just writing whenever I kind of felt sorry for myself. Writing because I felt that maybe, I needed to express how I was feeling at that moment, and never. It was always to keep track of my son's behavior. It was never about me at that time, ever. I never thought about myself, which is something very common. Our self care is put on the back burner. And even when I did start to see a therapist, I still did not journal for myself. It was mainly about keeping track of things for my son, so when times would be, I'd be questioned, I'd have all the information in front of me. But the interesting thing is, no one ever wanted to hear from me. No therapist, no psychiatrist, no rehab, nothing. Nothing. It was shocking. And I kept feeling like, wait, don't you want to know? Don't you want to see? Let me send you this letter. I put together this like letter so it would be easier so you'd have like background information on my son. No, we don't need it, thank you. Really was mind-boggling. But what I realized after the fact is that they don't address any of that. They address whatever's happening at the moment. Your kid goes into rehab, that's it. They start from there. It's like clean. They never did anything else beforehand. They don't need any back end stories, nothing. Wow, maybe I needed that. Maybe I needed to know what was going on and try to get a better understanding of it. And that's why I wrote that down. I don't know. But that's not really journaling. And that's not something that you should focus on for self care. That is a separate issue. And that is something that you should keep separate as a journal, separate from journaling for your mental health. One of the questions you should ask yourself when you're starting this is, how do I prioritize my problems, my fears, and my concerns? Like, how do I decompartmentalize these things in my head so I can enjoy things? So I can go out and have dinner with a friend of mine and not feel like I should be home alone thinking about my son, where he's living, what he's doing, how he's making a living, or that he's in rehab and how he's feeling alone, or did he feel like I left him, or is he angry at me? Yeah, that is no. You need to stay focused on how are you going to put your problems and fears and concerns into action for yourself. So that should be the start of that. And that's just asking you that question. Now, when I say like, oh, you ask these questions, I love when people have these lists. Listen, you can't answer a question, just move on. Who cares? These are just to get you started and to talk and to start thinking and think out loud. These days, you could even just videotape yourselves if you need to and then erase it after if you want to. But it's a really great way of putting down your thoughts and especially fears, because one of the things I realized is I was scared of my son. There were times when I should be scared of my son, and I put myself in danger. And that's what you have to be careful of, not to put yourself in danger. How do you know you're in danger? Well, if you are even thinking of that you're in danger, you're in danger. If you're locking your bedroom door at night, if you're hiding your purse, if you're hesitant when he comes home or she comes home or your addict comes home and they're present, and you don't know, they seem belligerent, anytime you say something to them, they are really not happy. And they definitely disagree with you. If you disagree with them, ooh, better not to even go there. So, number two, track how you feel during the day. See what, recognizes some triggers. Like maybe you're with some friends of yours and they're mommy friends from, or daddy friends from when you were in, your kid was in junior high school, and you're meeting them for lunch or dinner, and they're talking about their kids, and you're feeling like, wow, look what happened to my kid. Yeah, it's a problem. I don't even know what to say. I mean, I'm sometimes places and they're like, "Oh, do you have another kid? Oh, who's your other kid? Oh, okay." And then they start asking even more questions. I just stop it right there. I go, "Yes, I have another kid. He's very ill, and that's it." I leave it at that. And they typically will leave it at that. Why should I say I'm estranged? Why should you write down and make it out like it's your fault? Nothing's your fault. You didn't choose these paths, but you can choose your paths moving forward. And that's where the self care in journaling comes into play. And that's how something I never realized long ago, that it's the most important thing to do it for yourself, not to keep track of anything. It's to do it for yourself. And that will help. So, tracking, yes, keeping track of things that your son is doing and how you're feeling about that, yes, for sure, but not the whole thing to be about what your son did or the addict did that day. So the next thing I would talk about is, how you could, put together some kind of opportunity for positive self-talk. Get these negative thoughts and behaviors behind you, and at least for the day, how can you think about something positive? Well, I always think about, maybe something you want to do, something different that you haven't done. You want to strive to go to a concert this month, or you want to meet up with some friends that you haven't met up with in a while, or you want to play cards once a week, or you want to take up pickleball. Whatever it's going to be, put it out there. Start thinking about something different. What if maybe you want to move away? What if you need a change of scenery? Okay, all right, put that on your list. How is that going to look? Can you transfer your job? Can you work from anywhere? If not, don't be discouraged. There are other ways of getting around that. But put it down. Give yourself a feeling of what's really what you're about. And it starts the healing process in yourself and finding out who you're about and what you like and the things that really interest you. Not focusing on saving someone 24/7, which is what I did for years. Being in survival mode is not living. Being in survival mode is not journaling for your self care. Being in survival mode is totally trying to save your kid from going to jail or killing themselves. That is survival mode, and never knowing when the call is going to come. You just can't live forever like that. It just doesn't work. I did it for 14 years, and it just doesn't work. So that's a really good way of starting the self talk, and identifying like the negative thoughts that you have, and then kind of putting them away and reminding yourself every time that comes back, oop, nope, nope, let me focus back on me. Oh, no, let me focus back on what I'm going to do tomorrow to make my job better or become more successful, or keep some, side activities more robust, or involve friends that you haven't seen in a while so you could see them more on a weekly or monthly basis. Now, how would you like, I love these questions that people come up with, like, how would you spend your perfect day off? Well, I really don't know how I'd spend my perfect day off, depending if I had money or not. There are a lot of things you could do if you had money, but what if you didn't? What if you didn't have the extra money to spend? What would you do? That's the perfect day off. Me, if you would have asked me that 8, 10, 12 years ago, I would have been like, oh my God, just sitting on the couch, binge watching something all day, all night, eating as much freaking frozen yogurt as I'd like, with no one telling me what to eat or not eat, not having to serve anyone brunch, dinner, lunch, anything. That would be my perfect day off. Okay? Now, yours might be something totally different. Maybe it's fishing, maybe it's boating. focus on those things. That is what you should focus on. And every time that trigger comes about your kid or any kid, it doesn't matter how many kids you have, this is about your self care. If you can't get better, you can't help the other people around you. No way, no how. It's going to be a disaster with everyone around you. So that's why journaling for your self care is the ultimate. Now, let's go into what makes you feel the most inspired. When you feel the most inspired, what is it? Maybe you've been able to stick up for yourself when it comes to your addict. Maybe you've been able to be strong and say, no, I'm not giving you any money. No, you're not manipulating me today. Maybe that's something. It definitely inspired me when I could do that. Wasn't often, and I definitely caved in many times, but it did make me feel good when I was strong enough to do it, although it also made me feel bad because I felt guilty. So, and the addict made me feel guilty. He made me feel very guilty. Oh, what do you mean? You want me to starve? I'm not going to have any food. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? Okay. The other thing is, what's your favorite form of self-care? Like, is it having your nails done? Is it going to the therapist? Is it meditating? Is it journaling? It could be a million things. For me, I don't know, because back then, nothing would make me feel good. Nothing. And I didn't even want to do anything for myself. How could I feel good and my kid having all these issues? And thinking and feeling like, in a way, I was a part of it and it was my fault. So, and I couldn't solve it. So that made me feel like less of a person and incapable of solving things. So that whole thing was a disaster. And that is not something or a place I was able to go. So I don't know if most people could do that or not. Something I would have done to take better care of myself is definitely focus more on me. Back then, I focused and put all my energy and love into my addict, my kids, my job, and I was not able to feed love to myself and embrace love from anyone else. And I would have changed that because I think that's really important. And I feel like a lot of parents that go through this together often are angry at each other and do a lot of blame gaming, and then they fight. Oh no, I don't want to spend that much on rehab. Oh no, I don't want to send him there or her there, and I don't want to do this. And know that it's not that bad, and they're constantly not on the same page. And that rips apart a marriage. So if you're in a marriage and you're not on the same page, that is 100% the first thing you should be working on. That is what the most important thing is before your other kids. Because if you don't have that, your whole family unit's going to explode. So, and if you're divorced and your significant other, who used to be your significant other, is not on board with you, well, okay, you're not in the same home. Ignore them. Do not listen to what they have to say when they come back at you with their negativity. You just keep saying, you need to go get help. You need to go get support and learn about this. You need to be honest with yourself, and you're in denial. Until that person gets out of denial is only going to be when that addict comes at them. They do something to that person that they're not happy with. And then when it affects them and not you, it's a whole other thing. And then they realize, oh my God, maybe I was wrong. Maybe my ex-wife isn't so crazy after all. Maybe I'm starting to see things that I didn't see before because I didn't want to see them. Because actually, I was kind of happy that they were going at my ex-wife. Because why wouldn't I be? Then it makes me feel better as a father, or the father I was or wasn't. Those are all things that are going to play into this. And that's why journaling and sharing the journaling with maybe your significant other is an awesome idea, because sitting down to dinner sometimes and you're like, okay, instead of like, how was your day or how was your day? And we know how each other's day was. Either we're in good moods or bad moods, But sitting at the table or sitting around the couch before you start to binge watch something, take like 20 minutes a night or 15 minutes a night and just sit there together and talk. Talk about how you're feeling. Talk about how you're feeling about your relationship with or without the addict in your lives. Talk about how sad you feel about not knowing where they are, or that they're in rehab and you feel like every day is just a horror. Feel about how they're on the street, or you know where they're living and that they're angry at you and how that feels, and how you feel helpless and you feel like you're a loser. Okay, I felt that way. I felt like, oh my God, I look around and I see all these people with their kids and everything's growing and doing, and what about me? Well, how did this happen? Why did this happen to me? It didn't happen to me. It happened to my addict. I embraced it into my life because I didn't know how to do it any other way. But when I did learn how to do it another way, it became a different story for me because it's not my story anymore. I was in the story for a long time, but once I got out of the story, I was on the road to self-care. So these are just some tips that you could do in your household. Maybe you want to do it with your kids. Journaling could be very different. It could be for everyone. You could each have a journal and then come together every night and just talk about some things that maybe you wrote in your journal, or maybe do it one by one, because every kid needs to feel special. And maybe asking them this will make them feel more special. And they know their sibling is not around. They know their sibling is causing chaos in the house. They know because half of them don't even want to come home. They don't want to deal with it. It's disruptive. And it makes everyone in the house angry and upset and fight. And there's a lot of anxiety that builds up over that. So, as far as journaling, there are a lot of different ways you could journal. But the first way of doing it is to focus on your mental health and incorporating everything else into that afterwards. I hope this helped, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.